And welcome to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Joe Concha, and joining me for the wrap tonight, she is a contributor with Forbes magazine and a fellow with the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Carrie Sheffield is here.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How's everything?
Yeah, feeling fine. To her right, he provides the mature perspective to the show, and he also co-hosts Steele and Unger on SiriusXM. Rick Unger, everybody.
Also writes at Forbes. Forbes is taking over the world here. This is a good thing.
This is a Newsmax show, not Forbes, so let's not give him too much
Forbes
airtime. Finally, she has a perfect attendance record here on the Daily Wrap. Who knew? Former ad executive, a columnist with the Huffington Post, and a person of the cloth. Reverend Jenny Crumpton is here.
What's up, Conch?
How are you, Crump?
Yeah. I like it. I'll go with it.
You go Conch, I go Crump. Either way, let's get to the Daily Download.
And lest we get on our high horse and think this is unique to some other place, remember that during the Crusades and the Inquisition, people committed terrible deeds in the name of Christ. In our home country, slavery and Jim Crow all too often was justified in the name of Christ.
And that was President Obama at the National Prayer Breakfast this morning, comparing the brutal savagery that is occurring today in the Middle East in the name of Allah to the Crusade and Inquisitions. Wait, the Inquisition, you say?
The Inquisition, what a show. The Inquisition, here we go. We know you're wishing that we'd go away. But the Inquisition's here and it's here to stay. Oh boy, the Inquisition.
What a show.
Yeah, the Inquisition. Oh, I'm sorry. Got carried away by Mel Brooks.
Yes, a classic, a classic. History of the World is a
The
top
kick
10
line.
comedy, no question about it. Anyway, before we go off on a tangent, did the president really compare an ugly period of Christianity that lasted, on and off for about 500 years to the brutality of Islam that lasted, I don't know, forever? Look around the Middle East. They still stone people to death. Women have almost zero rights. Violence against non-believers is still taught in the Quran. For instance, like this, quote, "We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve for what they have associated with Allah." So let's discuss this, everybody. And we have some more passages actually here. Let's go with another one. Kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them, and besiege them, and sit and wait for them at every place of ambush. You stay classy, Quran writers. And even today, we had a guest today. I don't even like to say his name because, quite frankly, sometimes I wonder if he deserves airtime because he's just simply here to instigate. A radical imam from England who was with Steve Malzberg defended ISIS's actions to burn to death their Jordanian prisoner that was on Steve's show earlier. Let's take a listen.
Defensive jihad, there are different rules. And in this kind of scenario, whatever the Muslims can do within the realms of acceptable behavior, they are doing. And part of that is terrorizing the enemy.
And we lost audio there, but maybe it's a good thing that we did. The point is, the issue is there is a sizable portion of the Muslim community that still follows the Quran word for word. They endorse Sharia law and the killing of non-believers. Women in the Muslim world are treated horribly. Human rights seem to be an afterthought. So the president comparing the Crusades and Inquisition to what is currently happening in radical Islam, is that a little naive? No, Jenny?
Look, you know from last night that I hate cherry-picking verses. So there's 3 points I want to throw out really quickly, uninterrupted, to put out on the table that makes this a little more legitimate discussion.
Sure.
First of all, this was the National Prayer Breakfast. It's an annual thing. It is chock full of faith leaders who understand what Obama is talking about because they're leading interfaith initiatives for peace and religious reconciliation. So in the context, I don't think he was comparing, he was referencing history. In an appropriate context. My only beef is that Obama left out Hitler, a self-professed Christian who was quoted as being inspired by the Holocaust, by the Passion play, The Passion of Christ. Second, it's irresponsible to cherry pick. If we did that with the Bible, and there's still a lot of people who take the Bible very literally, we could look at Joshua, where our Christian and Jewish forefathers claimed they were told by God to ransack villages and go in and kill every living thing, men, women, and children. They said God told them to do it, so they did it. We can, talk about the fact that Revelations, which so many Christians believe is a true prophecy, that everyone who are unbelievers in Jesus will die. Formal Christian violence began in the 5th century. The church itself killed its own people with heresy, but it's still going on. Just a few months ago in Central African Republic, where Christian militias were staging brutal attacks and killing Muslims, tens of thousands of Muslims had to run for their lives. So, look, are you Christian? You're Christian, I'm Christian. There are things that are going on in the world that we don't pay attention to. So,
Rick, you want to add anything
let's
to that?
talk. Let's just talk about. I think this divisive rhetoric and cherry picking from the Quran is just really dangerous. And ISIS just wants us to be divided.
Rick?
We need to be unified.
Yeah, I actually agree with all of that. You have to be very careful when you start taking things that go back a very long time. Christianity is moderated, Judaism is moderated, and for most Muslims, I believe, certainly in this country, it's moderated. We know what the president was trying to do this morning. I think to try and paint a bad picture on it, it's not necessary. I have been one of the first to sit here and say it's this whole, I won't call terrorism Islamic terrorism. I think that's silly. It is Islamic terrorism.
It is, absolutely is. And frankly, what Obama's doing is a false moral equivalency, because the Inquisition happened so long ago. People were illiterate. I looked this up. At the UN in MENA, Middle East, North Africa, the literacy rate is 77%. That means most people can read the Quran directly. Whereas if you read the Bible, which people were not allowed to read the Bible directly, this was before Gutenberg, which Jesus himself said, "My kingdom is not of this world." When they came to arrest him, he said, "My people won't fight because my kingdom is not of this world." And so,
but they do fight, and it's happening in Central Africa right now. So, you're
But
also making it a parallel that isn't true either. So we all try to make these comparisons, and all it does is divide us.
Well,
and
I think what Obama did was absolutely wrong, because he
Oh
said
my
he said
gosh.
with Cuba, for example, like, what happened before I was born doesn't matter. And so now he's saying that what
Guys,
happened before
we
he
have
was
to
born
end, we
matters.
have to end it
The
here,
Inquisition.
unfortunately. And Carrie gets the final word on this. So it's certainly a conversation that we're probably going to revisit during another show. Coming up next, are we sending troops to fight ISIS and Al Qaeda on the ground? This is the Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV. And welcome back to The Wrap, everybody. I'm Joe Concha. Well, guys, I don't know if you read this today on Newsmax. You probably did. But it appears the White House is floating a trial balloon to gauge public reaction to the possibility of sending U.S. troops to fight ISIS and Al Qaeda on the ground. There is the lead story there on Newsmax. Obviously, that is a very big deal because we were told that boots on the ground were almost an impossibility when airstrikes first began way back when. In January, the president met with GOP leaders, including Senator John Cornyn, who said the president was keeping his options open on how to handle the Islamic State, but no details nor time frame was revealed. The president has felt some pressure from basically everybody, including his own party, that he is not taking ISIS seriously enough. His response to the burning Jordanian pilot was certainly not exactly passionate, certainly not strong, considering he's the most powerful leader in the world. So let's hear from Mr. Obama on that.
Should, in fact, this video be authentic, it's just one more indication of the viciousness and barbarity of this organization. And it, I think, will redouble the vigilance and determination on the part of a global coalition to make sure that they are degraded and ultimately.
Now, back in the fall, Fox and CNN commissioned polls to find out if America is supporting sending ground troops to fight ISIS. Each poll showed increasing support near the 50% range. If a poll was done now, I'm thinking we might see that number even higher. So, guys, Rick Unger, is it time for the president to move and commit to ground troops?
You know what? It is inevitable that there will be ground troops. I think this president was trying to put it off maybe till the next administration. The polls are swinging in that direction now. Every week we're seeing new polls show that people, as they see more and more what ISIL is doing, they're far more willing to commit boots.
Carrie, when this first happened, when ISIS came on to the radar and then we committed to airstrikes, I think even then, people were still kind of war weary because we were just getting troops out of Afghanistan, we're pulling troops out of Iraq. And it was because, well, the Iraq war, you heard from some, was unjust, and we never should have gone in there. However, Afghanistan was always seen as the just war because it was supposed to go after the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. Right. And now this appears to be another just war where Americans would say, we're sick of it, we don't want the fatalities, but we've seen what ISIS is doing. The airstrikes may be kind of containing them, but it certainly isn't defeating them. Is it the right decision?
Right. No, I think Obama swung too far. So going from, if you could claim maybe Bush was going on offense and Obama wants this to be defense, as in things have happened, that vacuum has been filled. I would argue that there was a campaign Obama on the campaign trail, very idealistic, made promises of withdrawing troops. The reality is, we should have renegotiated SOFA. He could have if he wanted to. He didn't. So now the crows are coming home to roost because we didn't have that renegotiated SOFA.
Separate issue.
Interesting. Jenny, I have a feeling you have a different opinion.
Obama has said all along he would listen to analysts and professionals who know what to do, and if they wanted to put boots on the ground, he would consider it. I think the idea all along is that we would mobilize the people in the region to use local militaries, and we would support that and give money to it and training, etc. But we want their neighbors to be fighting on the ground. And also, 22 veterans a day take their own lives. This is really taking a toll on America, and we really need to, I think it's right to really consider whether we want to send our people into harm's way again like this.
Right. I guess the thought process is that we make the sacrifice now or else they will obviously grow.
Well, we work
and
with
if they
our
do another
partners in
9/11,
the
we may
region.
regret knowing that we knew exactly where they were and we didn't do
Well,
anything
most
about it.
analysts think that that's not a possibility, something,
But you brought up a point before, Jenny, and you touched on it briefly about an international coalition, a true one this time. I'm sure Jordan, they don't have the biggest army in the world, but they would commit.
Yes.
Where is Germany? Where is Italy?
Right.
Japan, they're not angry. Australia, they're always willing to come along. UK as well. I mean, I'm talking about 50, 100,000 troops from each nation. Go in there and wipe them out quickly. I know it's easy because I'm not going, but...
Japan doesn't even have a military because of World War II. We neutered them.
Right.
Jordan's, I looked this up, their military GDP is 3% of what ours is. I think UAE, it's about, or Saudi Arabia, it's 10%. So these are really, really small military forces.
There are militaries around the world, though.
Actually,
the idea is that we fund, support, training, and that we get other countries on board. I think it's just a process, and I think we're right to be very deliberate about it, but I do think we're moving that way.
As a media critic, I would write about myself right now saying, boy, you see that host who said Japan had an army? Good
Well,
Lord.
they do.
But I
They
need
do.
military support.
They cannot. They can only go on the defensive. They can't do offensive military activity, but they do have.
Oh, they are trying to reinterpret the Constitution to be more on offense. But I think Bret Stephens with the Wall Street Journal just has a great book that just came out talking about what the problem with Iraq was. We tried to build a state, a Jeffersonian democracy. We can't do that. I think he argues we can be the policeman of the world, but we can't be the priest. That's where we need people like Jenny, people from civil society to go in and actually build versus just sort of being the cop on the beat, which we left. Obama left, and we were not the cop.
Well, speaking of cops, James Woods played one once, I believe, with Michael J. Fox in a movie back in 1991. I forget the title. Somebody will tell me in my ear. Anyway, here's what he had to say about ISIS. We have the tweet here, and it's been retweeted thousands of times. If we ever capture the ISIS thug who burned a heroic pilot alive, let's pray we don't pour a cup of water on his face. That would be cruel. So James Woods not getting too many big parts anymore, but certainly very active on Twitter. He makes a very good point, though, that we just debated the heck out of waterboarding and torture, and now we're seeing the way these barbarians act, and suddenly the waterboarding looks quite civilized all of a sudden.
No, we don't measure our behavior based on how other people like that behave.
Amen.
We're way better than that. And I thought his comment, it was a real James Woods type comment. It was ridiculous.
I call him Jimmy Woods. What do you think, Karen?
Well, you guys are close. You dated in high school, didn't you?
No. We dated the same girl in high school, not the other.
I see.
Right, and I think he's slightly older than me, but the point being, his daughter actually is. But anyway, point being,
He dated his daughter. Wow, that's creepy.
something like that.
I thought
Jimmy's
it was
tweet.
a little bit flippant. I thought, I agree. When your yardstick is sort of the most hellish fiends imaginable, and that's who you're comparing yourself to. I thought it was, I mean, granted, you know, he doesn't work for the State Department. He can be a comedian or whatever he thinks he is, but I thought it is too brash.
Just going to be a quick lightning round here. Jenny, 5 years from now, is ISIS still around and still a major threat?
I think it will be very much diminished at that point and on its way out.
Rick?
Doesn't matter, because if it's not ISIS, there'll be another one.
The back will be
There's always
filled
gonna
by
be
somebody
another
else. Carrie?
Let's choose your own adventure. If they keep getting military successes, it's going to breed more recruitment. So it's our choose our own adventure. We can, I think, determine the fate.
And on that note, coming up next, should restaurants be forced by the government to hang a sign to wash up after a trip to the boys' or girls' room? I'll be doing that right now, as a matter of fact. Too much information, I know. You're watching The Daily Wrap, and it's only on Newsmax TV from New York City.